the last 20 years, the comic book movie has dominated at the box office. In particular, the MCU the last decade cranked out hit movie that was loved by fans and critics alike, putting out countless billion-dollar films. But the last couple of years, things have gotten a little bit shaky. The DCEU has literally crumbled. They pulled the plug when there were 4 movies still to come out, leaving them just like dead on arrival. The MCU, they've had some good stuff over the last couple of years, but they've had a higher percentage of misses, and it just feels like we're kind of wandering around in that excitement that we all used to have just a few years ago. It's not quite there anymore. So today, we're going to sit here and we're going to debate, has the comic book movie bubble burst? Are comic book movies going the way of the Western? And what do they need to do to turn things around? All recorded live from Megacon 2024. Woo! I am excited because I think almost all of us, comic book movies, big part of our journey, big part of our lives. To that point, let's just kind of go down the panel, introduce each of ourselves, and I want to know, where can we find you on the internet, who you are, what's your favorite comic book movie, and kind of what's the first comic book movie that you saw in the theater? Let's start down here with Holden.
Yeah, hey, my name is Holden Hardman. My channel is Holden Hardman. I do a lot of pop culture movie reactions and reviews with my wife, who, when I met her, hadn't seen any comic book, pop culture, anything. And
interesting.
So one of the best things that I've gotten to do is show her Star Wars and Marvel and all these great movies for the first time. And so we get to kind of all experience that together. And
which one was like, did she, like, what was it most exciting to see her experience for the first time?
I think Star Wars was like her first step into this, you know, like this world. So that was really great. And so the whole like, Luke, I am your father was wonderful, and getting to see that kind of thing. She did not know, but
that is awesome.
How was that possible?
Yeah, so that's great. Anyway, first comic book movie I saw in theaters. The first one I can remember was Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi. I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan in general, plus Spider-Man. So that's the first one I remember, and my favorite comic book movie is Spider-Man 2. So that's it.
Very cool. All right, Cody Leach, who are you?
As he just told you, my name's Cody Leach, and I'm equally as creative as Holden. That's also the name of my channel. So easy to find, easy to remember. I do movie reviews, rankings, things like that. I tend to play in the sandbox of the horror genre more often than not. So if you like horror, a lot of stuff over there for you. My favorite comic book movie, for the longest time I've said Captain America Winter Soldier. That just kind of plays into all that old school action espionage stuff that I love. But over the past couple of years, I'm tempted to say The Batman. Everything that guy did with the Batman just works for me, so that might be the new #1. And the first comic book movie that I personally can remember seeing was Birth of the Bat Nipple, Batman Returns, or excuse me, Batman Forever, 1996, 7.
That was, yeah, something like that. So that's a fun first one, yeah. So.
Yeah, I loved it when I was that age. And I watched it when I'm 12. I'm like, oh.
All right, I think we're gonna have. This will be interesting. This will play out. So my name is Sean Chandler. My YouTube channel is Sean Chandler Talks About. And my journey into comic book movies goes all the way back to summer 1989. Michael Keaton's first Batman. Yes, yes. Woo. I had all the toys, and my mom wanted us to collect our toys. So we'd buy one toy to open and one to save. So I have all of these old toys in my garage. I still have McDonald's cups. So if you remember the mugs, yes, yes, we are on the same page right here. I've got all of that stuff. That was my journey that kind of started, and I still have my collection of all the trading cards in my office. That's how I got started on this path that has led to this moment. Favorite comic book movie? I go with the original Superman the movie, Christopher Reeves. That's the one I grew up with. So born in 1981, and in the 80s, he was our superhero. So those ones shaped me, formed me, and like just taking it seriously, the score, phenomenal stuff. Those are my picks. Who are you though?
It's hard to follow that up. I have basically no collectibles from my childhood. It's just an empty, sad room. But I do love movies. My channel is Adam Does Movies. Have a lot of fun. I do a lot of movie roasts, movie reviews, everything movies all the time. A couple live streams a week.
What did you think about Godzilla?
Yeah, I don't know.
-1?
You got to talk into the mic.
What did you think about Godzilla -1?
So my favorite comic book movie is probably X-Men 2, X-Men United. I'm a big X-Men fan, so that one just hit all the right notes for me. The first movie I remember seeing in theaters, I think, is probably one of my favorite Batman movies, Batman Returns.
Catwoman right there.
She gets it. She gets it. All right, there you go.
And you don't have.
Oh, yeah. Here, have both of them.
Double mic. No. What's up, guys? My name is Chris Bowie. I run the Film Stock YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram. I do movie reviews, rankings, all that stuff. But I also really found my footing with Stranger Things. I do theories, news, breakdowns, all that stuff. I'm also the young gun of the group, so my answers are going to be definitely the most recent.
Well, first, do you have a Stranger Things panel coming up in the near future?
I do. Tomorrow here at 10 a.m., Stranger Things Season 5, Theories from the Upside Down.
That sounds incredible. You should come to it.
Stay tuned. But no, the first comic book movie I vividly remember seeing in theaters, to kind of age myself here, was Iron Man 2 back in, 2010?
Wow.
So I was 10 years old.
I was about to turn 30.
Yeah. There you go. And my favorite is probably the most recent film here as well, Avengers Infinity War. I adore that film. It's the beginning of the end for the early goings of the MCU and the most rewatchable comic film to me.
All right, with that said, let's just kind of kick it off talking through kind of our takes on the comic book movie genre. Like, I know, so Cody, I know in your position, you used to watch all the Marvel stuff and you're just like, I don't keep up. Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah, so I grew up in the 90s where, I mean, it was like kind of how we still are with like video game adaptations. You see a new comic book film, you kind of get excited, but you know what it's probably going to be like. And if it's just tolerable, you're surprised. And then we get the era where suddenly there's this consistently like great track record with Marvel and DC's doing interesting stuff. And even when we had the Fox X-Men universe, it was like, man, what a great time to be a comic book fan. Past 2 years, if I have to watch a comic book property, it's like going to the fucking dentist. It's like, I just don't care. There's homework involved. You're not selling me on it. If I wait 3 days, nobody that I trust is saying anything that's motivating me to really set aside that time. So there's few exceptions. We got some great ones here and there, but for the most part, yeah, when we see a new comic book movie or especially a Disney Plus show, I just can't care. I can't force myself to care until they care.
Well, even kind of in what you just said, your favorite comic book movie of all time came out less than 2 years ago.
Yes.
But at the same time, the genre as a whole, it's like, what's going on? I just feel tired of these things. Holden, how about you? Where are you kind of at on all this?
Yeah, the multiverse right now, I think, is kind of, you touched on it. There's a lot of homework, a lot of things to get involved. Endgame was really like the end, with sort of Spider-Man No Way Home being sort of a epilogue or prologue, after what I'm talking about.
One of those logs.
Yeah, one of those logs. So I think the multiverse, and then after Endgame, all the Disney Plus shows started coming out. And I recall it starting on a relatively high note with WandaVision. And I really enjoyed WandaVision. I remember like, okay, if this is what Disney Plus Marvel is, I'm game. And then it kind of, I just started to wobble a little too much. And the multiverse, in my opinion, and just the MCU in general, in my opinion, has always been a blessing and a curse, because yes, we get to see Captain America and Spider-Man, and we never thought that was going to happen ever with the Sony, and we get it. But then there's also no more like coherent single things like Joker over on DC, or like the original Raimi Spider-Mans, or these sort of independent things that don't rely on. Because now moving forward, because Eternals makes it so that the Celestials are things, and so like Captain Marvel is a thing, and these other things. So how do you make it so like you always have to explain, well, where are they? What are they doing? The threat is so big. Would that not bring in this guy? Because we know that they're there, and it's a blessing and a curse. So I think right now it's just the multiverse is just a little too fractured and a little too wild, and needs to be brought in. There's a couple other like political things that have started to become more prominent now as well, but that's just my opinion.
But even to kind of something you said, it feels like everything is tied together, and then the one that you like stood out, like that's one of my favorites. It was a standalone. Like, just make a good movie.
Well, you have to be interesting too. It's right. Not to borrow one of your phrases, because I don't want to get like trademark infringement, but like a lot of times with Marvel,
I will never forgive you.
A lot of times when I see Marvel stuff over the past 2 years, it's like a Taco Bell advertisement. If you like Taco Bell, what do they do when they want you to do? They want to come try your new item. Hey, limited time only, come try the new cheesy, spicy, crispy Dorito box thing. And then you get excited, you go, you slam your money down, you take a bite, and you're like, you sons of bitches, this is the same ingredients you've been serving me since '94. And that's how the last number of them have felt. It's the same ingredients, the same formula with a new skin, but they don't feel different. They feel like I've seen this 18 times before.
All right, so let's switch over here. We're like kind of more the totally different phase of life. The MCU is like, those were the movies during your formative years. So what's kind of your experience watching the MCU rise, fall, all that fun stuff, and your kind of take on this?
Yeah, so ever since Iron Man 2, it's been an event to go to the MCU, to the theater for a new MCU movie each year. And when they were doing 2 a year, it was like you get one in like May, one in maybe November. It was an awesome time. Now we definitely live in an era of oversaturation, but it's weird. The way I look at it is like the MCU, I would put a stamp on it, hit or miss. It's like, oh, they'll put out this movie that I hated, and then they'll have Loki season 2, and I'll be like, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. It's one of those situations. And so I will always like I'm so far in. So many people my age I talk to are so deeply committed. They're going to watch every new MCU project for the rest of their lives. It's kind of a chore at times, honestly. But I do love some of the things we're getting. But that's where I stand with like the MCU. I think a lot of non-MCU projects, that's where this genre is excelling right now.
So when you're in high school, this last decade, what's it like in the hallways after one of these event films?
Oh my gosh, I mean,
when I would show up at the high schools back in 2015 and wander the halls, security would take me out of the building. I just wanted to talk Marvel with a bunch of teenagers. So can you tell me what that was like? That was a joke in case anyone doesn't.
No, yeah, so like,
I mean, after the first time, because I stopped doing it. Right, of course.
I have like vivid memories of being in the cafeteria every single day at lunch. And the entire time, the entire time we were talking MCU theories. I'm glad that you also had the shared experience of eating, in a cafeteria. That's a normal thing. No, it's like we would theorize every day. It would be on the bus, no matter what theories. And after Infinity War came out and Endgame came out, those were the two like. It was a talk of the town. Everyone was talking about it. Someone saw it Thursday, but someone's going to see it Saturday. So like, don't spoil it. So yeah.
Very cool. All right, Adam.
Yeah.
You roast movies. Have comic book movies been giving you a lot of solid material recently to roast? What's your feelings on that?
Yeah, first off, everything you guys have said has been lovely and right on point. And I like going last on this because, everything has been said already, so it's perfect. I will say the oversaturation is a huge issue for me. We went to Universal last night after hours, and we were able to go on the same roller coaster over and over again. And after the third or fourth time on Hagra's, as great as that ride is, it loses a bit of its luster. And I feel like Marvel keeps trying to repackage these things, but like Cody said, it's just a Taco Bell meal in a different wrapper with a different name. The last year, we had Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, or as I lovingly refer to it, Quantum Shitia, Thor, Love and Thunder.
My mom watches these, and she doesn't like that kind of language.
I apologize to Sean Chandler's mom, who doesn't like the salty language. I noticed you didn't scold Cody when he swore earlier, but that's fine. That's fair. And Thor, Love and Thunder was just absolutely embarrassing. I think this whole idea of just green screen churn and burn is getting really played out. They put these digital backgrounds. Nothing seems real. Even when you're in Asgard or a magical place, you can still get a connection with these actors as long as there's something tangible and physical there. But they're just so stock at this point. It does really feel like AI is taking over these movies, and it's just not magical, much like the rides were last night.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you.
It was fun as we were riding these rides. He'd done all of them before, so he knew what was about to happen. He just looked at us and watched our faces. It was special. It was a nice experience. Yeah. I know, as for me, like, comic book movies have always been a part of my life. And in the last phase, they changed the trajectory of my life. Like, I started my YouTube channel just because I like to talk about movies. In writing phase 3 of the MCU, changed the trajectory of my life to where I'm right here talking to you guys. This month, it's been 5 years I've been full-time because I had so much fun talking about comic book movies. I've talked with a bunch of you already this weekend, and you've been like, oh, it was your MCU rankings. Oh, it's when talking about Infinity War, Endgame. It's like that. I've had that conversation so many times already because it was exciting. They were events, and it just doesn't feel that way anymore. Feels like just some of that has kind of dwindled just a little bit. And so if we're all to kind of pick what that is, what do we think it is that's kind of causing that disappearance of the excitement that was once there before? What would you say you think that is?
Sure. I think for me, one of the things is that it generally feels rudderless right now. Like they don't really have an end game, or like to what end are we going now? I feel like every phase of Marvel was kind of leading somewhere, and that kind of built up some just general excitement, and we got to enjoy the individual stories along the way. And I think now they're just like trying to hit beats almost, like, oh, here's a character that you all like. Isn't that good enough now? And so I think rudderlessness is a big problem.
It's like so many of these characters, like, when are we going to see them again? Who are the current Avengers? Like, we introduced characters back 4 years ago, and we don't know when we will see them again.
Yeah. I think like the post-credits scene thing was really like popularized by Marvel, and now it's almost like it's almost gimmicky, because like there's all these, I have to like remember, like there was something at the end of Eternals that was like pretty significant, and
Harry Styles, like Harry Styles is in the MCU.
Guys, that's how they fix it.
Harry Styles, One Direction.
There's also a giant hand coming out of half of the planet that they just don't address anymore, which seems like that would be a thing.
It's a nice tourist vacation spot.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of political stuff kind of involved, and I know that's really fractured the fan base. I'm typically, when I look at like how other people review movies, I'm a lot more forgiving about certain aspects, but I'm like, no, you're right here, but I think you're maybe being a little too harsh in this regard. So I'm a little bit kind of softer in my reviews of some things, but there are some things I just can't like overlook. So I know that a lot of the fan base is like, I feel like I'm forgotten. Like y'all don't even like me anymore. Did we not make this popular? So I know that that's a really big issue.
It's a combination of things for me. So you look at like the golden age when all this stuff was firing on all cylinders, and what did we have? We had the Fox X-Men universe that was really unique and was doing a lot of interesting things. Some of my favorite comic book films of all time. Well, Disney acquired that, 4 or 5 years ago, and have done dick with it since. You have the DC universe that's just had identity crisis the entire time. They try to be their own thing. A lot of us love it. Some of us didn't. Then they try to emulate Marvel. Some of us loved it. Some of us really didn't. And it's been just a juggle match of that. Now they're rebooting. And then the MCU is just, it was a problem of complacence, because you think back to like the movie Whiplash, one of the best quotes in that movie from J.K. Simmons. One of the most detrimental things that you can say to somebody is good job. What did Disney and Marvel have said to them for 10 years? Good job, keep going. Nothing but positive reviews, nothing but fresh Rotten Tomatoes scores. Even when the movies were mediocre, we were like, okay, it's still pretty good, keep going. And then they just never really had that challenge. They never had the competition from an X-Men universe that they bought, or the DC universe that was always struggling for success, to motivate them to keep doing better. They were just like, oh, you guys like that? Just don't take your foot off the gas, keep doing that. And after a while, that started to feel really stale for me and a lot of us. It's just, we know what to expect with most of them now.
When tying into several things you said there, we used to have DC, Fox, MCU. Mm-hmm. And even early MCU, Universal was tied to one, and Paramount was tied to it, and then it was Disney. So different studios, different voices, different flavors. Now, Fox and all of that is under one umbrella, Disney. And there's just a certain sameness that comes along with that. They figured something out that was fantastic, but you don't want to eat the same meal over and over again. What's the thing you'd point to?
Yeah, piggybacking off that, I'm a big fan of less is more. I know it's fun to get like 30 movies in the same property, but typically you just see the coaster go down and never back up again. Devaluing the property is kind of a thing Disney's been doing across the board, not only with the MCU, but Star Wars, we're seeing this. And I think it's just because they're burning all these shows out. It's like every week there's a new Marvel show or Star Wars, and they're trying to tie them into each other, and it's just too hard to keep track of. And again, if they were standalone, that's one thing, but these are all kind of married together, and it makes this ugly stew at the end where She-Hulk is part of the same universe now as maybe Deadpool, I don't know, and the Marvels and Captain America. It's just too much. I don't care.
And I've had this same conversation with so many people where I used to watch everything. I just can't keep up anymore. And it's compounded by every other, like every streaming service, every IP has so much stuff coming out, you can't keep up. Like, people keep saying, like, hey, Sean, are you going to watch The Boys? Hey, Sean, are you going to watch Invincible? Like, I want to. I just only have so much time.
Too busy watching She-Hulk and doing theory videos.
Watch it all.
I'm working on cloning technology, and I'm hoping that will make the difference.
No, yeah. So for me, I think that the copy paste formula with like DC, the DCU put out 4 movies last year, and to me, they were all pretty much the same plot. And then you look at the MCU, and it's becoming homework for people, and that's a big problem when they're required to watch 2 MCU shows and 3 movies before they can understand the plot of something else. So I'd say that's a problem right now in terms of audiences wanting to go see the new comic book film and burnout. I think the burnout is real, and the box office proved that last year, in my opinion, with the DCEU flops and also just the MCU underperforming. So, yeah.
It's like Michael Keaton, the Batman of my youth.
Yes.
Ben Affleck and George Clooney. 3 Batmen in 1 movie. Plus Supergirl. Like,
plus the pre-release hype.
No one cared. It was crazy that happened. All right, we wanted one more perspective on here. So you can let us know who you are, where we can find you on the internet.
Hey guys, what up? My name is Bevan. I'm from Beverages with Bevan on Tubi. That's a show where we toast and boast to our guest and their drink of choice. While I don't have a YouTube channel, I do write for Screen Crush. So I actually just wrote about this. It's called Why Disney is Failing. It came out.
We'll get there. First off, a little point of reference.
Yeah.
Favorite comic book movie?
Favorite comic book movie is, well, I thought we were starting with the first comic book movie I saw.
That'll work too.
Okay, great. First comic book movie I saw, Batman Returns. Been a lifelong Batman fan.
Batman Returns.
Well, listen, Kevin Conroy is still my Batman, but
yes, mine too.
There we go. We're gonna get along.
Favorite animated show of all time? Batman animated series.
Oh God, rest in peace, Kevin Conroy. Favorite comic book movie? It kind of rotates, but for the sake of this conversation, I'm gonna say today it's Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the first one. The reason why is because I knew nothing about Guardians. I never read the comics, but it did so well setting up these characters and the world that I cared. And I think that's the point of what I want to segue in is why is the comic book bubble bursting? And it's because the execution is just lacking. There is very little character development on these new characters that I don't have time to read all the comics in the world. So you need to set up the characters. I need to understand what they want and what they need to learn. And that is a factor of why I think there's a lot of fatigue, because there's no relatability. I'm not attached to the character. I don't care if they win or lose because I don't know anything about them.
We don't spend enough time with them. Like,
we don't spend enough time with them.
Tony Stark, he's in Iron Man.
Yep.
He's in Incredible Hulk. He's in Iron Man 2. Then he's in Avengers. And then he's in Iron Man 3. He's like 5 movies very early on. Shang-Chi. When am I going to see him again? That was cool. I enjoyed that movie. When am I going to see him again? When's he coming back? And the Eternals, will we ever see them again? Like, we don't spend any time with them to connect with them, and they're not building out kind of what that looks like.
Honestly, Eternals should have been a Disney Plus series.
Totally.
I needed to understand who everybody was. There were so many characters. I wrote about this for Screen Crush. So many characters. I didn't have time to get attached to who they were and what they wanted, because it's a good movie, has your plot, which is the A plot of the story, and a B plot, which is the character journey, what they need to learn, what they need to overcome. And that's what gets us attached for them to win in the A plot of the story. And that's just lacking in mostly last year Disney properties as a whole, but just superheroes.
All right, we're going to start transitioning the conversation in the other way. So we'll kick off with you, and we'll cycle back. So, what do they need to do? Like, what are you excited for in the future of comic book movies or television properties? What are the properties that excite you, and what changes can they make to kind of revitalize things?
Well, I think because I list Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn, I really have a lot of faith in him, because I really thought that the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy was the most solid trilogy out of all the MCU properties. It stuck the landing for the most part for all 3 of the films. So I think, and he's taking his time to develop the script. He's not letting studios rush him to it. He wants to make sure that the script is solid. There's a lot of character development in it. And I think if movies focus more on let's get the audience to care about the characters, we're going to show up. If it's a good script, we're going to show up. If it's executed well, we're going to show up for the characters because we're imprinted to them.
So here's my fear. James Gunn shows up, does what they should have done 10 years ago.
Yep.
And I really enjoy individual DCEU projects. I just think it was a bad universe.
Correct.
He does it right from the beginning, but it's after everyone's burned out and they're tired of it. And so even though maybe they'll be good, is it too late?
I don't think so.
So you think the bubble hasn't burst, they just need to get back to good?
Yeah, they just need to get back to executing it well. Because there's a lot of diehard who's excited for a Superman movie? Yeah. Why are you excited? Because James Gunn is attached to it? Or just because you like the character? You're attached to the character. I don't know. I guess I didn't get a pull. But
Thank you much for joining.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
All right, let's go back. Holden, what are you excited for the future comic book genre? What changes can they make to get you excited again, win people back?
Yeah, I'm generally optimistic, and I try to keep things in perspective that when you look, I call this the Star Wars prequel theory. As much as we hate where we're at right now, and we're like, why would... The kids that are in middle school, elementary, and high school, they will look back on the movies of today a lot more positively, generally. I freaking love Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. I love them. I grew up with that, but I remember distinctly the original trilogy guys were like, this is the worst thing to happen to Star Wars ever. I
laughed at Revenge of the Sith in the theater. I was an obnoxious 20-year-old, as you can probably imagine. I was like, ha, 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 ha. I've come around more as I've matured in age, but I was laughing at your movie.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. And probably about 15, 20 years, the kids today, listen to me, they're going to be looking at like the sequel trilogy and they're like, everyone said this was awful, but I actually kind of dig this.
That's not going to happen.
Unfortunately, it will.
But,
I have kids. They don't like the sequel trilogy.
My point is that I do think that it can be salvaged. I think we need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. We need to kind of just tell good stories instead of preaching messages, and I kind of feel that way generally, politics, religion in general. And that kind of thing, and just tell a good story, and focus more on the individual characters. I think they need to wind down the multiverse a bit. It's a gift and it's a con, and I think that's a good place to start.
Building off what you just said, I had a thought. Even one of the things that might be an issue over the last few years is there haven't been enough on-ramps. I have a 11-year-old son, 9-year-old daughter, and how many of the DC movies could be that on-ramp? Four of us said a Batman movie was our first movie we saw in the theaters. Now, you think Batman Returns, penguins biting noses off, and there's all sorts of stuff. You go, maybe that wasn't a kid's movie. McDonald's certainly thought that. But there aren't those on-ramps, it feels, because you're so deep into the MCU, and they're like, well, I haven't seen this yet. And I wonder if maybe that's even one of the changes they need to make, is find that way to have the on-ramps to get the way that prequels were for you. What's that on-ramp?
Yeah, I agree. We think very analytically about the movies and the placement in the timeline and the characters and the power scale and all that. Kids, I have kids too. They don't really think that way. I could take my 8-year-old to see the Marvels, and he'd probably love that. He doesn't think that way, and he'll be an adult one day, and he'll remember us. I'll be like, this was horrible. So I just try to keep that in mind. I want things to change. I want to enjoy them, and I like the analytical breaking apart. But that's usually the way it works. That the generation will look much more favorably, and hopefully we can correct it now so that we can also all enjoy together, which would be the end goal.
For me, I want my kids to be excited about these movies. I only want them to be good. I'm rooting for all of them. Took my kids to go see the Marvels, hoping that they would be pumped for the movies.
He's like, they hated it.
Then my 5-year-old starts bawling when cats start eating people. It's like, great, I traumatized my kid with the Marvels. All right, you've said you dread seeing new comic book movies. What does it take for you to come back around to be excited again?
For me, it's really simple. Not that it's easy to do, but just go back to telling great stories, focusing on telling good stories. That's what they did for the longest time. That's what you remember about your favorite comic book films, is the stories that they took you on, not the cameo, not the end credits scene. And it just feels like that's become the focus now, where it's all about quantity over quality. It's all about the cameo porn. It's all about, you got Deadpool 3 coming out. Has anybody online actually heard somebody speculate on what the story is? Or is it just who's going to show up? Is it going to be this guy? Is it going to be from this universe? That's all anybody cares about a lot, because that's how they've kind of started to train you. Doctor Strange, they have in the trailer, they're like, look, Patrick Stewart, we're going to tease it. Oh, that 90s music. And I just wanted to go back to good stories. It's just, to me, it's very simple.
Kind of bouncing off that, I really hope that they dive into actual like subgenres instead of it just feeling like this is a superhero comic booky movie. Like, go into the horror side of things, you know, explore sort of the spy thriller, kind of like The Winter Soldier, like you mentioned earlier, Cody. Like, do things unique within it, and also bring the budget down. Like it's become this big spectacle event thing. Not everything needs to be an event film.
And not only that, but like you can't make your universe feel like homework. Like for the first 10 years of the MCU specifically, there was that like that need to see that because you wanted to be a part of the conversation. You wanted to be clued in on the next movie, and they were good enough to where even if you had something like Guardians of the Galaxy, most of us didn't know who the hell those characters were. We went opening night because we had brand loyalty, we trusted the quality, and we wanted to know what's going to happen in the next movie. And then we have the Marvels last year where it's like, what do I need to see to be clued in on the Marvels? Oh, you need to see Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, you need to watch WandaVision, you need to watch Miss Marvel, you need to watch Secret Invasion. 3 of those I hadn't seen, and I walked into the movie saying, no, I'm not doing 20 hours of homework to see your movie that's not even selling me. And you watch the film, and it literally will leave you behind if you're not willing to do the homework, and you're going to lose everybody.
So kind of going back to what you said about the budgets in different genres, when they're trying to make every movie a $1 billion film, every movie's designed to be 4 quadrants, every movie's like, you just create this sameness. It becomes vanilla. And to what you said earlier of when everything is huge, big, when everything, you ride the roller coaster time and time again, the spectacular stops being spectacular.
Well, look at 3 of the most successful movies. The budgets are all pretty small. Deadpool, Joker, and The Batman. Maybe The Batman had a bigger budget, I don't know. But regardless, they're standalone stories. They weren't trying to build these huge worlds, and people freaking love them because they were just good movies.
Wait, to the question, also expand it. Oh, what will win you back, sir?
I wouldn't say I'm gone. There's so much that you have to kind of weed through all the noise. I'm actually really excited for the DCU with James Gunn because I love his movies. I think he's a writer that understands that characters come first. He took some of these ragtag, kind of unknown characters with the Guardians. Mass majority of people don't know who they were. Now everybody knows who they are. If he can do it with them, I cannot wait to see what he does with Superman and some of these other big names.
No, yeah, like when Guardians came out real quick, I mean, that was the talk of the town. Going back to you asking me, in high school, were kids talking about it? Guardians was the talk of the town, and it was a risk, and it paid off because they emphasized the story, the characters, and they let a director have their vision fully sought out. They need to do that more.
And nobody knew who they were.
Correct.
Like nobody. And James Gunn, when that movie came out, like he made trauma movies. If you know what trauma movies are, whoa, like, don't watch them with your mom. And that's what he did for a living. And then he wrote Dawn of the Dead. He wrote those Scooby-Doo movies. He did this movie called Super with Rainn Wilson, which is bleak.
He's here.
Yeah, Rainn Wilson's right over there if you want to talk to him about the movie.
We can have him on, yeah.
And then they make him do Guardians of the Galaxy, which nobody knew who they were. Chris Pratt was like the 5th billed person on a sitcom. Drax is just a wrestler that didn't have a movie career yet. And the 2 biggest names they had were doing voices. One of them only says, "I am Groot." And they made a movie with characters you cared about, and everyone fell in love with them. Like, I know people that have tattoos, like the whole deal, because we fell in love with the characters. And stepping back and trusting a writer, a director, to put their stamp on something. Don't run everything through a committee. Don't micromanage everything. Allow storytellers to tell stories. Allow them to craft characters. And when you do that, people will love it again. Like, the phrase I've heard so many people say is, people aren't tired of comic book movies. They're tired of mediocre comic book movies. And there's just too much. So let's dial it back and make them events again that everyone wants to talk about in the halls, that everyone's excited about the characters, where it doesn't feel like you need to do a bunch of homework. And I think you'll win people back. So has the bubble burst? Probably not. Does it maybe need to shrink a little bit, dial it back, and make the ones that we make them special and original? Yeah, that's what we got to do. You can't turn it into Taco Bell. You can't make comic book movies the Chili's of movies. Make them special. Make them find.
Chili's is delicious.
Coming up with some new phrases here. Yeah. You're there for it.
The hierarchy of food is about to change.
Yeah. That's what I think we need. All right, with our last few minutes, let's kind of go through what's something with comic book movies? What's the one you're excited for? Or what's like a smaller comic book thing that you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's two from both Marvel and DC. I mentioned at the beginning I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and watching the progression of Tom Holland turn into Spider-Man, I've loved it. I wasn't quite sold on Homecoming. People were like, it's the best Spider-Man movie about. No, it wasn't. Far From Home, it's the best. I'm still not sold. When I saw where Tom Holland's Spider-Man was at the end of No Way Home, I was like, that's Spider-Man, not Iron Boy Jr., that's Spider-Man. So I'm really excited. I'm really hopeful. And with my luck, Sony's going to take the property back and we'll never see him again. And then the second thing, I'm kidding. The second thing, I am cautiously optimistic about Superman. I really loved Henry Cavill. He really won me over. Just like as a dude, he's kind of like one of us that kind of made it, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm cautiously optimistic. I really hope that James Gunn can really form the DCU in a wonderful way and kind of take the lessons of what made Marvel work and what's kind of made Marvel falter and apply it. So I'm really looking forward to the new Superman movie because I love Superman and I hope that he nails it. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
You hate comic book movies. What are you excited for?
Well, the less interesting, obvious answer is the Batman 2. I mean, if I love the first one so much, I can't wait to see what they do with that one. I'm not even worried if it takes 2 or 3 years. Take all the time you need, make it awesome. I'm sold.
Wait, do you think with the first one, they literally gave him 5 years?
Yeah.
It was 5 years, and some of that was COVID, but he spent like 3 years writing the script, getting it right. They didn't just crank the thing out. And people love it. Like, it's one that actually connected with people. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, the more interesting one to me, like of all the things that have been announced, and specifically in the new James Gunn universe, the most James Gunn pick was a Swamp Thing movie. I'm not familiar with the Swamp Thing comics. My only point of reference is the movie that Wes Craven made that's interesting. And when you look at James Gunn, he can do whatever the hell he wants to launch this universe, and he picks Swamp Thing. And we have James Mangold attached to it, who's, with the exception of maybe Dial of Destiny, has pretty much a spotless track record for me. Why is that interesting? Because that's unique. It's different. We don't have anything like that. A horror character, this almost universal monster that's within a comic book universe, and you're going to get a name like James Mangold. I'm there for that one.
Yeah, for me, obviously the Batman Part 2, but I want to highlight a movie that we didn't talk about these at all. The Spider-Verse films, that's proof that original great comic book movies exist.
You're right.
And Beyond the Spider-Verse, I think, is probably got to be up there for most anticipated upcoming. And I think that trilogy has just proven that animation is an untapped potential for the comic book movie genre.
Yeah, 100%.
First, I want to say the utter disrespect for no one saying Madam Web is disgusting. I mean, I think we can all agree that the Sony non-Spider-Man Spider-Man universe is just phenomenal with Venom 1, Venom 2, Let There Be Garbage, and Morbius.
Morbius? Yeah, it's Morbin time.
It's Morbin time, baby. No, those movies are embarrassing, but I think I'm kind of excited for Kick-Ass, the reboot that they're working on.
I didn't even know
Apologize
they were
to your
doing
mom.
that. Now I'm
title.
excited. That's my answer now.
Yeah, Kick-Ass is going to happen on a bigger scale. I already mentioned James Gunn, so I don't want to be redundant about it, but I think that what they're going to do with the different properties and different directors attached will be unique and interesting. That's all I got.
All righty. And for me, I'm going to kind of go with the safe answer again. Going back to what I said at the beginning, Superman the movie is my favorite comic book movie of all time, the one that shaped me as a person when I was under the age of 10. So the fact that we're kicking off another DC universe with another Superman movie, I'm always curious. And then also because it feels like such a different project for James Gunn. And people want to put him in the box. He just has smart alecky characters, which is wild. But he did Dawn of the Dead. Like he has a lot more versatility.
Yeah. Slither? Great movie.
Yeah.
He's done a lot more than people realize. And so What's he going to do with Superman? How's it going to set up this universe? Will this universe work? I think all of that has me very excited to kind of check that one out and see where they're headed with things. But I look at it and I feel if they can course correct, if they can make the right changes, there's plenty of things to be excited for because we love these characters. They've made great movies, but you can't, just because one worked doesn't mean you can put out 3 movies, 5 TV shows in 1 year and keep up the quality and that people just go, yeah, 1 scoop of ice cream's good. Let's eat 20. No. You'll get sick of ice cream really fast. And so there you have it. Thank you guys so much for joining. Any final thoughts?
Thanks for joining us.
Madam Web is out very soon, so get your tickets now.